Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the vaccine year. It is Friday, November 19th. I'm Jerry Roberts, and I'm here with a special mansplaining edition with Nick Welsh from the Independent and Josh Molina from Newshawk and SB Talks. Thanks, fellas, for coming on. Quickly on COVID, Nick, things look pretty flat. I haven't seen anything remarkable except 3/4 of the people who are hospitalized did not get the vaccine.
We're sort of in perpetual Groundhog's Day here with COVID. Can we come out there? The Metropolitan movie theaters is opening up. The Hitchcock theaters.
Hitchcock, yeah.
The City College is saying, hey, to the world, the Playa Stadium is available so you can run the steps, which personally I think is awesome. Not that I run steps, but so there is a sense of release and relief. And the numbers are pretty much flat. We have countywide, I think it's 9.8 per 100,000 new cases. For us to get down to where we don't need to have masks on indoors, we need to get down to 6 per 100,000. Those are new cases. We had a couple we're like 538 deaths, and we have, I think, about 25 people in hospital beds at this point, which is a lower than usual number and manageable.
And we'll see what the holidays do.
But yeah, we're here. We're just coming up around Thanksgiving, and this is the time where people tend to get together and do stupid things.
Yeah. All right. So Josh, all through the election for mayor and council, all the candidates sort of, pushed away questions about State Street by saying, well, we're waiting for the new State Street Reimagination Committee or whatever it is. So they weighed in on their first report to council. And I was just kind of astonished, I have to say. First of all, they've hired a new person named Harris. I don't know what the last person named Harris is doing to run it. And then Dave Davis says, let's not get bogged down in the details. Like, what are we going to do with the parklets? We need to look at the big picture in 2050 or what? I mean, this whole thing, and the council just sat there except for Friedman and said, yeah, this sounds good.
Yeah, 20 years ago, I probably would have been, really enamored by Dave Davis's quote because it was perfect. It was an amazing quote, but it was all nonsense. It was all PR. It was like, hey, we got to do it the right way. Take our time. Once in a lifetime. We're going to do this all together. This is the dream team. Why rush it? And it was like, come on, Dave. You've had 4 meetings. And it's going to take 2 years. You have a committee. You have hired a consultant. You're going to hire a consultant. You're studying things. You're talking about what you're going to do. I just feel like it's an example of how government works. And obviously, the private sector would need to work much faster. Eric Friedman said, are there some short-term things we can do in the context of parades?
Before 2024, yes.
Yeah, and even Oscar Gutierrez said something about, what about the 400 block?
He's got a lot of
the answers were like,
block, doesn't he?
I think there were 4 times I counted in that meeting where Tess Harris said, great questions, but then said, we're taking our time. So, yeah, I guess we're going to sit around and wait for people to meet. And
I mean, let me just jump in here. Okay, let me admit first, I didn't watch the meeting, so I don't have any first-hand.
That's never stopped you before.
Never stopped me. Okay, Thanksgiving is coming up. Do you want to eat your turkey before it's cooked or not? It's like they've had 4 meetings.
But they're talking about 26.
Here's the short-term fix.
More months.
Jerry, here's the short-term fix. Hose down the street. You figure out the parade. I guess we're going to find out soon enough because isn't the Christmas parade the biggest single parade we have? So that will be of note. But there were a number of questions like I think View Corridor. I read in your article, Josh. what do we do about the views and how high do we allow? And Kathy Murillo, the mayor, said, well, we don't want to discourage housing. And if you want to have buy-in from the community and this community in general, here's the deal. You have to engage it first. We haven't done that. You have a bunch of people talking to themselves, and you have to have some sense of what the plan is. And you do have to kind of go a little bit slow when you're talking about the skyline and how high do you have the sky go. And that's a really, it's not a little thing, it's a big thing. And so they kind of have to think about it. And so, yeah, there are some quick fixes. Like clean up the State Street and let.
Well, Randy, the soon-to-be mayor said we'd have to have a deep cleaning, which is what my wife's always telling me I need to do in the living room. But I mean, okay, that sounds good. Is Randy going to sit still for this 2.25 year timeline before they reimagine things, you think?
Well, he can stomp his feet and get mad, but I think, Randy is a creature of City Hall, and City Hall moves slow. Randy was on the council for 10 years, so he may get a little impatient, but the fact is, they do have to figure out some short-term fixes and that. But the long-term questions, like, what are we going to do with Paseo Nuevo? Do you think anybody's got a magic wand and they're going to fix that? It should take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference there, that's private development and there's all these different hands. I would imagine in January when they have their next city council meeting on State Street, Randy's going to nudge them and we'll probably see some short-term goals.
There's a lot of things wrong with journalism, but one of the good things about journalism is you have deadlines. And when you have deadlines, you tend to meet them, or at least you need an excuse for missing it. Anyway, all right. And so, Josh, then I guess the next step is the RFP for the new consultant or something. What? Did you ever see that New Yorker cartoon where there's two detectives standing over a dead body, and one says to the other, "Given the viciousness of the slash wounds, we think the victim is a consultant." So, okay, I look forward to it. All right, elsewhere.
I mean, the reality is the city just hired a new community development director. He's been on the job, 2 months now. He's going to take a little time to figure out how to drive the car around.
It's going to take him a couple of years for us to realize he needs to go too. Okay, It's all coming together. I love this plan. I'm excited by this plan.
I think you need something to get outraged by.
All right, tell me about the tiny homes. How can I, I guess we've solved homelessness with the tiny homes or what?
No, we haven't solved it, but it is a nice nibble at a big apple. What they're proposing is 33, they call them cabins, but they're tiny homes. They're actually, they're nice little pallet homes, 64 square feet. They're going to go in a parking lot that is currently owned by the county probation department, right next to a 4-story office building with a penthouse apartment on top. And it's, they had the grand unveiling for it last Monday. Greg Hart, Santa Barbara County Supervisor, had the best line. He said, "At least we have windows in these." Referring to Warren Munger's Charlie Munger, right?
Charlie Munger.
Combining the two. Charlie Munger's 4,500 student edifice out at UCSB.
That was a good line, actually.
And
can
you have
explain where we now have this process of intake and temporary and transition housing. Where in the process are the people who are going to inhabit the tiny homes?
Well, one of the ideas is that the people who are currently staying out at the Rose Garden Inn on State Street by the tee-off will be in a position to transition here. And so that these are people who have sort of gone from living in the bush into what they call encampments. They never call them camps. It's always encampments. And they're going to take them from there from the encampments to the Rose Garden to what they call it, Dignity Moves is the name of this particular project.
So you think this is a good thing?
The idea, yeah, I do. The idea here is that everybody is going to have to take some homeless solutions in their district, in their neighborhood, and that you're not going to stick it all in one neighborhood the way we have done it in the past, which was the East Side. And that everybody has to sort of share the wealth and share the help.
All right. Okay. So baby steps. Okay. Incrementalism, Josh, I think would be the lead of the show to this point, but
Creeping incrementalism.
Well, hey, Nick refers to the Rose Garden Inn as the place near the tee off. I refer to it as the place near 31 Flavors. So I think that says a lot about both of our backgrounds.
I'm with the tee off.
Okay, but here's the tee off. Like half the people in the tee off are off-duty cops, right? Or off-duty sheriff's officers. So I don't know what the security problem is here.
Yeah, good point. All right, Josh, in your spare time this week, you were engaging in your favorite activity of beating up on the Santa Barbara Unified School District, and specifically Superintendent Hilda Maldonado, and you got your hands on this report, which I guess was not supposed to be public. Congratulations for that. Which was a number of negative comments about Hilda, who's been here, all of 17 months and came in the pandemic. But anyway, the teachers who responded to this, which of course are a self-selected universe, are not happy with her, correct?
What, did Kate Ford script that for you, Jerry? Come on.
No, I'm just
talk about a biased lead-in.
Fair and balanced. Okay, that's me.
The Teachers Association did a survey. They sent it to almost 700 people. 316 people responded, and those who responded overwhelmingly said that Hilda is out of touch with the vision, the needs of the teachers, of the counselors, of the therapists. And I was pretty damning overall. There were some open-ended answers too, where they said she doesn't listen, she doesn't come to campus, she doesn't know us, there's lots of pressure on us. It was a pretty negative report. It was supposed to be sent to Hilda for constructive criticism prior to her evaluation.
And then, just to be clear, so this is from the union. This is not like, this is not an official report from anybody.
No, this is the teachers union. It would have been private, except they sent it to the board. And once you send it to the board, it's a public record. And of course, board members are made up of politicians, and politicians talk to other people in the community, and things get out, and teachers had copies of this thing as well. So the report comes out. It's very damning of Hilda with very personal comments. We didn't link to the report on Newshawk because it was pretty critical of her in some very personal, harsh ways. But we used some of the comments, and Kate Ford's response was, the president of the board was, "Hey, Josh, we're all tired. Teachers are tired. Teachers are overworked. It's COVID. It's the pandemic. Everybody is really doing their best here." And really, Hilda has just started to work here in September. You can't really count the pandemic time. And so that comment, by the way, really infuriated a lot of the teachers and the administrators at the district, because they're like, that's a really terrible way to minimize the concerns that these teachers have. So we've been talking, there's been, I've been reported on some dissatisfaction with Hilda Maldonado. However way you cut it, shape it, there is legit dissatisfaction with Hilda Maldonado. It'll be interesting to see how she's able to respond to it, if she's able to rise to the occasion and make it work, or if she's going to continue to push out longtime locals who've been doing the job for a number of years and feel like she's an outsider who's coming in and shaking things up without taking the time to understand how we got here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds familiar because it was a lot of the same criticisms of the last guy. But, I do have to say that if you took any workplace in America, particularly a union workplace, and asked the employees, hey, what do you think of the boss? The less than half of the people would respond, and those who responded would be overwhelmingly negative, and they'd say the boss is an idiot. And I don't know. I take it with a grain of salt. Of course, teachers are going to complain. How much? And the other point is, how much of it was about the vaccine? Do you think
Well, Jerry, what I would
the
say is,
mandate specific?
what I would say is, I think your point makes sense, right? We could take surveys of all three of us here and we could find a whole bunch of negativity around us.
Well, except
This-
Nick. I'm sure his coworkers.
Right, they've all
but-
left.
Point is, Jerry,
You've already driven them out.
the point is that this is a government institution. This got 14,000 students. This is not some private company that we may or may not have an interest in. This is an organization that affects families throughout Santa Barbara and the South Coast. So yes, we could say whatever, this is how teachers who don't like the superintendent feel, but the bottom line is that this is a very substantial, significant organization. And I can promise you, Jerry, if this survey was about Kathy Murillo, you'd probably be leading with it in your newsletter. I can guarantee you that. There was some COVID anti-vaxxer people who did permeate this thing, and that's part of it. But it's not the majority of people who are complaining. The majority say there's too much pressure on us to do things.
And I thought Hilda's comment was, I thought she took exactly the right stance, which was, well, I certainly welcome this criticism and look forward to it, and the future lies ahead, which is basically all she could say. Hey, speaking of locals being driven out, is it a fact? Can you confirm the rumor that Kamala Barnwell is leaving as the PIO?
Well, since I told you that, Jerry, I think I can confirm that. Yes.
I just meant, can you confirm it on the show?
I can confirm right here, right now on this show that Kamala Barnwell, I don't even know what title she had, but the
She's the
executive
PIO.
of public
Yeah.
information. She's put in her notice, and I think she's going to go work at the Santa Barbara County Education Office. Better opportunity, better career opportunity for her. So yeah, that's a change at the district.
Yeah. And Nick, you're pals with Brian Barnwell, her husband, former city councilman and real estate appraiser par excellence. Have you heard any gossip from him about what is driving this move, other than Josh's cover story of improved career chances?
So, Jerry, if I had it, I couldn't comment.
Okay. All right. Hey, last thing is on the schools. So they arrested 7 male students, right, at San Marcos High for what, Josh? Were they were making threats or something? And this is right after they're going to get rid of the cop on campus.
Well, I think the June Starkey with the Indy covered this, and I know Tom Bolton did for Newshawk. I didn't cover it. I just know what I read. So Nick probably knows more as the editor of that story than I do. I don't. I mean, I know there were people arrested, but I don't know any specifics on that.
No, I
Let
just,
me. It's actually a really interesting story. What I'm hearing, again, not officially confirmed, is that there's 7 to 12 students that were arrested. They had been involved in a beatdown on a fellow student on one of the lower fields. There had been a sexual assault, and that the perpetrator of the sexual assault was worried that the cops would be called. He didn't want that, so he went to the peers and said, "I would rather you just beat me up." And they took him up on that, and they beat the crap out of him. And that typically, as happens now, everything is on is videotaped on phone cameras. So
they have a video. There's a
the
video.
videos got around, and they could pretty much figure out who did it and who didn't. That is the rumor that we are hearing, or not, it's more than a rumor, but it is not officially confirmed. So,
Wow.
yeah, But to go to your point, it is an interesting thing where they just get rid of the security guy, and it would seem like it made the case why we need a security guy. But the other question people are asking is, well, where was he at this time? That we don't know. We don't know what role did he know about it? Did he not know about it? It was the meeting, as far as I have heard, took place very far from the campus, the buildings, the classrooms themselves. So it's quite possible the security officer was nowhere near.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I want to go back to something we didn't talk about last week because we had a press clips edition, but this set to between Kristen Snedden and I've already forgotten. Barrett Reed, who Kristen just defeated for council, and now he wants to be reappointed to the planning commission and comes before council, and she offered a sharp line of questioning. Was she out of bounds on that, do you think? I don't know. The question seemed legitimate. What do you think, Josh?
Jerry, Nick, if you've ever watched Mike Tyson defeat Trevor Burbick to win the undisputed heavyweight championship, go on YouTube and watch this, okay? Mike Tyson knocks down Trevor Burbick 3 times, and he's falling around all over, okay? This was the equivalent of what Kristen Snedden did to Barrett Reed. I mean, this was a verbal assault on this guy. She showed no mercy. She asked a lot of really good reporter questions.
Legitimate questions, right?
Yeah.
About his holdings and how they would, whether there were conflicts or not.
Yeah.
Josh, reading your article, it's like she asked him, how many holdings do you have? And he doesn't seem to know, which kind of beggars credibility. And how many times did you have to recuse yourself, or did you not attend? And again, reading your article, one gets the sense he's not giving clear answers. Let's put it that way.
It was uncomfortable to watch on how you feel about anybody. It was relentless, and Barrett just kind of answered, and his answers changed. They went from one thing to another. And then Kristen said, I don't believe you, or I don't believe that to be true. It was really awkward, and nobody interrupted. So, the feedback I got was Kristen was over the top. She was, she won. Act like you're a winner. Don't do that. There's no need. Barrett's not going to get reappointed, so let it go. And then other people said, great, she did it. She did exactly what she needed to do. Hold him accountable. He went after her during the campaign. He criticized the council. Now he wants to get reappointed. She did the right thing. So I heard both sides, depending on what your perspective is and who you like.
I thought they were great questions, but the right message, wrong messenger. I mean, again, it goes to sort of Kristen's doesn't get how the game is played. I mean, somebody else should have been asking those questions. They were very legitimate questions. And the way it came across, given that they are legitimate questions about his business, that in 1971, Dianne Feinstein was on the Board of Supervisors, ran against Joe Alioto, got crushed. I mean, it was a dumb thing to do, to run and everything. And then she turns around and she wanted to be appointed to this regional board where she was in line to become the president. It was sort of like the thing with Helene Schneider a couple of years ago. And Alioto's response was classic. He says, cash losers' tickets at the winner's window. And that's what it reminded me of when Barrett, shows up like 2 days after the election. Oh, please reappoint me to that. So anyway, okay, so she's got a 5-year term in any case. The other thing was, it seemed like these were things that she was itching to have out during the campaign that, maybe weren't covered in the way that she would have preferred. And so, with Mary Rose gone, she just lost her filter.
That may be, but again, they do seem to be relevant to his function as a planning commissioner.
Yeah. All right. Elsewhere, Josh, we're going to get a new assembly district that is almost exclusively Santa Barbara. So Steve Bennett, who's our current representative, will probably continue to represent Ventura, but in the reapportionment, there's going to be a new district for, and the elections next year. It's less than a year away, which is closer than most of the elections I talk about. But Jonathan Abood, the indomitable Jonathan Abood, is already declared. Are we going to have a reprise of the assembly race from last year when every Democrat in the universe signed up?
I'm going to be quick here, Jerry, because I got a parent-teacher conference in 10 minutes. But Jonathan Abood is the first one to announce, and very early. They haven't even finalized the maps yet, so it's interesting. However, I think we kind of know what direction it's going to go, which is going to be a Santa Barbara, slightly San Luis Obispo County map, and then Ventura County will have its own district. Jonathan Abood is out first. Luz Reyes Martin is another rumored strong candidate to be interested in the position. Greg Hart is rumored to be interested in the position. It opens the door to a whole bunch of people. Maybe Kathy Murillo, Gloria Soto, the Santa Maria City Council. And what it does is this chain of events. If Greg were to run, what it does is opens up the supervisor seat. And so then there's lots of interest in who might run for that. So I've heard Jason Dominguez might come out of the woodwork and possibly take a run at this. It's a much more favorable district now for moderate conservatives, because you're going to have North Santa Barbara County. And if somebody who has a presence in the South County can appeal to those people, you know, it could shake things up.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
What about Aaron
to see the
Friedman?
Democrats indoors. I mean, they got a lot of players in that one. I don't know.
Well, we have a primary, right? So, you know, it'll all get filtered out there. We'll see who comes out early. Jonathan is probably already knocked on a few doors today. You know,
And what did he get in the last race? 7%?
He got 7%, but where he was effective was he blocked Kathy Murillo from getting the endorsement of the Democratic Party during the primary. And, you know, that was the first big sign, if we're looking back and connecting the dots, at Kathy's, you know, domino fall.
Does Greg want to go to Sacramento, Nick? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I know he used to, and he certainly has been there. He started off working for Jack O'Connell when Jack O'Connell was a assembly member. He was on the Coastal Commission, and he wanted to run for the assembly, but he was told, this isn't your time. Pedro Nava wound up getting the seat at that point. So it's conceivable he would. He sort of has really kind of found his groove on the Board of Supervisors.
That's the best job in the world, the Board of Supervisors.
It seems like it. You don't have term limits. You're close to home. You're living in Santa Barbara. You're making about $100,000 a year, decent pay, and you can make a difference. Whereas you go to Sacramento, you're one of 50, one of 80. You have to be part of the team.
Yeah.
And you have term limits.
All right. Hey, let me ask you this. So the Soups approved this new fire dispatch center. That's kind of a big deal, isn't it?
It is a big deal. It's sort of wonky infrastructure stuff, but it's, wonky public safety infrastructure stuff, and certainly goes to the simmering discontent or divisions between the sheriff's department and the firefighters, who have not been getting along that well in the last 4 or 5 years. But beyond that, I mean, it raises, the idea is that we're going to have a unified dispatch center, which will cost about $11 million to build.
For fire exclusive.
For all of the fire agencies together, with the exception of Vandenberg Air Force Base. And the argument being made is that this is going to be a significant improvement in response times, and that fire chiefs I've spoken to have estimated between 1.5 to 2.5 minutes faster, because the dispatch will get right down. There's 6 dispatch stations for throughout the county, and when it goes
for just county fire, or for different county different
for all of the different fire agencies. and law enforcement agencies. So the idea is that when the call comes in now, it'll go straight to the sheriff's department, and then they will immediately bump it to this fire dispatch center. And this dispatch center will know, the dispatchers will know where every single fire engine is. They will know which fire engine is closest, not which jurisdictional is closest. So if you live in, say, Austin Road in Montecito, for example, or near in the city limits, the Montecito Fire Department is actually closer to you than the city fire. And so having them send the fire engine will probably be quicker than having the nearest city one, assuming there is one there. So the idea is you're going to get there faster, and you won't have to send out 3 or 4 fire engines as opposed to just one.
Yeah.
Sheriff Bill Brown showed up and he said, this is a bunch of hooey. This is a myth, this idea that we're going to have what they call borderless dispatch. He termed that a myth. He put up a really spirited defense.
What is his objection? Is it?
Well, his objection was it's going to hurt on public safety. That one, he says that it's going to take 58 seconds to make the handoff from the sheriff's department to the fire agency, and that's time you can't afford. His argument is when you have law enforcement dispatchers and fire dispatchers in the same room, if something comes up where like the fire guys aren't going in because there might be a gunman there, the law enforcement dispatchers can shout across the room and say instantaneously whether it's safe for them to go in or not. So that was his argument. The other argument is that it's going to take somewhere in the ballpark of $1.5 million a year out of his budget that goes to dispatchers. And
so he buried the lead.
Well, he basically saying the county's saying if this is going to go forward, you have to make his department whole. So that's $1.5 million they're going to have to pony up to the sheriff's department so that he doesn't take it in the shorts. Now, one of the interesting things here was that Bill Brown did not show up in the supervisors' chambers to make his pitch, but 7 fire chiefs were there. Their second in commands were there. And these are people who all said, we want this. And they've agreed to pay collectively somewhere the $4.9 million it's going to cost a year to run this shop. And the city councils to which they answer have also agreed to this. So it's not just, the fact that the fire guys are, or the supervisors are much more susceptible to the charms of the fire guys. It's, there's a broader buy-in than that.
The firefighters think this is a good thing as a policy matter. I mean, it's not political. So can you just sort of identify what the main conflict between the sheriff's department and the firefighters is? I
can't really do a good job with that. I mean, part of it's resources. When there was a talk about, the airplanes or helicopters, there was a big dispute between county and fire and county sheriff. Who is going to be in control? I think that there's a personality issue. That Bill Brown is our current sheriff, now approaching his 5th term. It's his way or the highway. I know that's how the fire guys see it. And Brown obviously would not agree to that. So there's been,
and they believe that he botched the evacuation.
There's that. I mean, if you talk to him privately, that's what they will say. But Bill Brown is, probably the single, most effective politician, in Santa Barbara County, and he's used to doing things the way he wants to do them. He's very, very smart, but even his friends will say that he's a better talker than he is a listener. And, you know, this has been a rough patch for Bill. You know, last week he went to the supervisors for $50 million to remodel the existing South County jail. And they told him, no, you're not going to get it. We'll give you half that. You know, this week it was a 0 vote. It wasn't close. It wasn't just the South County supervisors. The 2 North County supervisors, Bob Nelson and Steve Lavanino, were very emphatic on this as well. Steve Lavanino, in fact, was sort of morally offended in a way at how Brown presented his argument in fiscal terms.
Yeah.
And Steve's take was, look, don't try to talk us out of it because it's expensive. We've put $100 million into the North County jail.
Stupid.
That wasn't popular.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Hey, I just want to say one more thing for the 12 people who may be hanging in at this point, which is your piece on the reopening of the City College field and the steps in that is a great example of the journalism saying, you know, there's no such thing as a bad story. There's just bad reporters. I mean, you could have taken that and mailed it in for 3 paragraphs and just rewritten the press release, but you really, you know, you put some voice into it. It was a fun thing, and you made it interesting to read, and it still was only 5 graphs. So I just wanted to recommend people see that as a, you know, that's not going to go in the lead of your obit. I know, but it's just an example of the kind of thing that you take care with, and you know, you don't mail in even the small ones.
Well, that is really, really sweet of you to say. I mean, the very first place I went when I first moved to Santa Barbara was the City College track, and back then I was running a lot, and I met a lot of people. I can't say a lot, but some people. It was like where I was sort of embraced into the bosom of the community. Other runners said, "Hey, let's go out. You want to run?" So I have such a warm spot in my heart for that track and that stadium. And so when it went dark in COVID, even though I didn't go there, I felt shut out. And so when they reopened it, my heart was glad.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't make sense.
The best line you had in there was, you know, you had a long list of people who use it, including firefighters who are trying to look busy, because that's how I got to know McElroy. I used to go there too, and on Sundays, and he and I would, when he was still a firefighter, would just walk around together and talk and stuff. And he actually once let my grandson go for a ride in the fire engine that he brought. So I have fond memory of it too. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Nick Welsh. Thanks, Josh Molina. And stay safe out there. And don't forget to get your booster shots. Take care.
Amen.